Join us. As you're coming in, let us know where you're coming in from. Let us know what city you're in. We are all across the world, which is so amazing. And just an opportunity to spend a few minutes with you. Yay! I am Marquita Green. I am so excited to be here today. We're going to be doing a little bit of reading, a little bit of examples. So come on, invite your friends, share. Make sure you drop a note and let us know where you're coming in from, where you're logging in. How are things going in COVID? Isn't this such an amazing opportunity that Girls Who Brunch Tour is doing something just for you amazing young ladies across the country, to just feed into you and pour into you and give you something to do while you're home. This is super exciting. So dope. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having me. This is the month of May. We're almost throughout the entire month. I can't believe that this time has gone so fast. But we are here. And this is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And that's where you talk a lot about all the things going on in our minds, things like depression that makes us sad and we don't have a lot of motivation, or things that are anxious, keeping us worried about things and we're fearful about what's going to come. How are our grades going to come out? Are we going to be able to get back into our sports? Are you all going to get back into the gym? What's happening? What about summer camp? Is there even going to be summer camp this summer? All these things keep us so tense. We don't know what's going on. But there are ways to help control that while we're going stir crazy and we don't know what to do, and we're tired of being in front of the computer during our schoolwork, and we've been with our families and we want to do something else. We miss our friends. Don't you miss your friends? Yes. So one of the things that you can do during National Mental Health Month, or any time really, just to kind of sort through your thoughts and your feelings, is to write. And so remember, we're asking you to log in and let us know where you're coming in from. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Let us know who you are and where you're coming in from. And we're thinking about ways to kind of control our minds and our boredom and our excitement and everything else. And so writing is one way that we can do it. And one of the things that I like to do besides journaling is I like poetry. And so I remember when I was in elementary school, somewhere around the 4th or 5th grade, I remember coming across a poem of an author, and he wrote lots of poems, and they were fun and they were just silly and goofy. My favorite poem of all times, I'm going to share with you because it's so exciting. And as we're thinking about ways to just keep our minds uplifted and keep us going and keep us excited and energized, I thought, I've got to read this poem. If I'm going to go on this Facebook takeover, I've got to do something that would make me want to pay attention. And this particular poem was by far the best poem that I've ever read, especially as I was a young girl. So the poem is not having anything to do with the topic. So if you read the topic and you said that has nothing to do with the 7 habits, we're going to get into those habits. But before we can get into them, I had to do something a little fun. So this poem is called Twistable Turnable Man. And the author of this poem is Shel Silverstein. Shel Silverstein, long time ago, way back in the 80s. What was even going on in the world in the 80s? He wrote a lot of poems. So that's one thing. So when we're talking about mental health awareness and we're talking about things you can do, writing is not something new. Books have been around forever. Poems have been around forever. So you can write a poem. That's one of the things you can be doing during this time. It's just writing some poems. They can rhyme. They don't have to rhyme. This poem rhymes. It's called Twistable Turnable Man. Are you ready? I'm ready. All right. He's the twistable, turnable, squeezable, pullable, stretchable, foldable man. He can crawl in your pocket or fit in a locket, or screw himself into a 20-volt socket, or stretch himself up to the steeple or taller, or squeeze himself into a thimble or smaller. Yes, he can. Of course he can. He's the twistable, turnable, squeezable, pullable, stretchable, shrinkable man. And he lives a passable life. with his squeezable, lovable, kissable, huggable, pullable, tuggable wife. And guess what? They have 2 twistable kids who bend up the way that they did. And they turn and they stretch just as much as they can for this twistable, turnable, do-it-your-foldable, bendable, moldable, buyable, tellable, do-what-your-totable, easily moldable, buy-what-your-sortable, washable, mendable, highly dependable, buyable, sellable, always available, bounceable, shakeable, almost unbreakable, twistable, turnable man. I don't know about you, but I had fun reading that. That was by far my favorite poem. All the bulls makes me think that nothing is impossible, that we can do anything that we put our minds to. And so that's what I want to encourage you of today. That as we're thinking about what we can do during this time and how do we get over this time, think about ways that you can write, that you can have an outlet, and think the impossible. We just read about the twistable, turnable man who could do anything. He was reliable and dependable, and everybody loved him. He had a kissable and huggable wife and all these great things. And remember, at the end of the day, nothing is impossible. Another a bull. So, what we're going to be talking about today has everything to do with that and the twistable, turnable man and what we can get out of that. And so my encouragement to you is, because we don't always feel good, because we may not always feel accepted, we may not even always have somebody to talk to. Have you ever had times where you just wanted to talk to somebody, but everybody was busy? Or in this time, in this quarantine time when we can't really get out, we don't really have anybody to talk to. So that's where this writing comes in. And I was doing some work and I was doing some studying on the 7 habits of highly effective teens. And I was reminded that the very, very first step is to be proactive. Let me grab my book so you can see them. I was reading 2 different books. One of them is an actual book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and it's by Sean Covey. But he also has a workbook, which is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens personal workbook. How awesome. Always something to do, so we can't get bored because we always have something to do. But the cool thing about it is he talks about exactly what we can do as teenagers, but it's not just teens. No matter what age you are, the number one way to be effective in life is to be proactive. That is habit number 1 out of this book, is to be proactive. And as I was reading this chapter, guess what I came across? A poem. So I'm going to read to you this poem that's in this book. It's not quite as fun as Twistable Turnable Man, but it is such a good poem to let us know what we need to do to be proactive. Here we go. This poem is called 5 Short Stories, or 5 Short Chapters. The author of the poem is Portia Nelson. There are 5 stanzas, so I'm going to read them and I'm going to quote out each stanza, which kind of looks like a chapter of a book. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It wasn't even my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. And then chapter 5. I walk down another street. When I read this poem called 5 Short Chapters, I immediately thought that this would be something pretty cool, not just to talk about, but I want to show it to you. What I noticed in the 5 chapters, and I'm going to go through it chapter by chapter, is that there was a time where there was a hole that was unseen. And then there was a time where we knew it was there, but we really didn't do anything different. And then there was a time where there was a hole. We saw the hole, but yet we still fell. And then there's a hole, but we got smart this time and we go around it. And then in the last chapter, we avoid the hole. Well, how about that? That definitely is an example of us being proactive. And so when we're thinking about being proactive, there are a couple of different things that we can think about. There's something called self-awareness. And this is what Sean Covey talks about in the book. So these aren't my ideas. These are his ideas that I'm sharing with you. And I'm going to bring them to life in an example in just a moment. So the first way that we can think about these 5 chapters that I just read is self-awareness. And that's when we observe our thoughts and our actions and try to figure out what role we play in a thing. And so I'm going to show you my first example. I have one of my wonderful, wonderful daughters here who's going to help do this example for you. So come on, Logan. Are you ready? All right. So Logan is getting herself ready. She is blindfolded. I'm going to turn this camera around so that you can see her. Slide over 2 steps to your left, Logan. Those are really little. 2 more steps, please. What you see in front of us is a hallway. And so Logan is going to attempt to go down the hallway. She does not know what's ahead of her because come back over, Logan. Okay. So she's right in front of the camera. Perfect. Turn around and face the camera. You see she's blindfolded. So we can't see, or she can't see, what is in front of her or what's behind her. So go ahead and turn around. And I want you to that is the direction of your bedroom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Say that louder.
Yes.
So I want you to go to your bedroom. Woo! Uh-oh. Wow. Did you see what happened? When we were reading our poem on the 5 chapters, we saw that there was a hole in the sidewalk that the author fell in. She felt lost and hopeless, and it took her forever to get out. Logan just gave us a really good example of what that looks like because Logan just fell. Logan was walking. She was going to her room, somewhere that she knows that her room is down the hallway, but something happened and something got in the way of her reaching her goals. Something tried to take over her mind and distract her. And she doesn't really know what it is because she's blindfolded. And sometimes we find that in our very own lives. We can be in school and we can be taking a test and we've studied for it, but something got us off track. And so what we need to do is figure out how to get Logan to her room in the same way that the author of our poem found her way across the street and around the corner without falling in that hole. And so what we're going to do as we think about self-awareness, we have to recognize the things that are going on within us and around us. So Logan showed us in the camera that she knew that she was headed straight. She knew that that was in the direction of her bedroom. And so sometimes when we think about self-awareness, we just have to take a second and think about where we are. But then the second thing that we need to do that Sean Covey talks about is to think about our conscious. That is our inner voice. That is the voice that tells us right from wrong. And so Logan knows that she was headed in the right direction. So we're going to begin to speak to her inner voice. We're going to be in her mind for just a second. I don't know about you, but I am thinking things constantly, all day long. And that is what's going on in the conscious. That consciously I think it's time to eat dinner. Consciously I think it's time to wake up. It's time to brush my teeth. It's time to get dressed. It's time to get to school. It's time to get to work. And so Logan we're going to talk to her conscious and see where it gets her. So I'm going to turn it back on Logan. And Logan is going to take about 4 steps forward, Logan. You see, she's not walking quite as fast as she was before because now her conscious mind is having her be more self-aware, being more conscious of how many steps to take in the right direction because she doesn't want to go in the wrong direction. So Logan, take 2 more steps forward and put your right arm out and put it down a little lower. Do you feel anything in front of you? Yes. Go ahead and move that to your left. So now this is the self-conscious, and this is beginning to tell her that she knows right from wrong. So she was told through the self-conscious that it's okay to move the board. So Logan moved the board, and now she's going to try again to make steps toward her room, just like we saw in chapters 2 and 3 of the poem that we read, 5 short chapters. So go ahead, Logan, and go ahead and go to your room. She's having some trouble. I don't think she's going to make it. And so let's see what's happening. Logan found out that even though she followed her conscience and did the quote-unquote right thing, she moved the obstacles out of her way. Sometimes when we're trying to be proactive, we have to get the wrong people out of our path. The friend that distracts us in school, the person that keeps us from doing our homework, the TV show that keeps us from submitting our assignment online during COVID, those are distractions that we have to be proactive enough, listening to our conscience to move those things out of our way. So we saw Logan move some things out of her way, but she still stumbled. You saw her stumble a little bit and fall over some things because there were still some things ahead of her that she didn't notice. And what we noticed in the story is that even when we move some things out of our way, even though we know that there are some obstacles, because now Logan, you saw her chart her way through and she still got stuck a little bit. And so when we got down in chapter 3 of our poem, it said that her eyes were open. She knew where she was and she still fell. Logan's eyes were covered because she's still blindfolded. But we're going to do something a little bit different, because what we need to do in step number 3 of this section from Sean Covey and 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, we see that it's time to think about use our imagination and to envision new possibilities. So we moved the board, and then Logan started, but she still had a roadblock. So now let's think about the imagination. When you have things that come against you that stops you from doing what you know you're supposed to be doing and from getting to the place that you're supposed to be getting, what about that high school student that just knew they were going to be graduating and getting a scholarship and going on prom and they can't? Well, if we use our imagination, which I'm sure many of our high schoolers who might be tuning in did, then they found ways to still celebrate in a different way. And that's what imagination is all about. Imagination is about thinking of things in our minds that don't currently exist, but they might be able to get us where we want to go. And so, Logan, what's something that you might be able to do to get you going forward?
I might be able to walk on this side of everything in the path.
And why do you think that?
Because the stuff is in the middle, which means the outside would be open.
So sometimes in using your imagination, you have to think about the resources that are around you. And so Logan is going to try one more time to see if she can make it all the way to her room using her imagination. You see, she's a little timid. She's a little scared, a little nervous. where are you, Logan?
In my room.
Excellent. So Logan made it all the way to her room by using her imagination. And I am encouraging you to use your imagination. And the last thing that we saw is willpower. That is the fourth step in Sean Covey's suggestions on how to be proactive. So he tells us that with our willpower, we have the power to choose. Logan was determined to get to that room because that was the goal. And so she refused to let anything stop her from meeting her goal. And Logan made it all the way through. Woo! Let's cheer Logan on. Way to go, willpower. So we saw Logan use her self-awareness. We saw her use her conscience. We saw her use her imagination. And we saw Logan use her willpower. And she achieved her goal. She was proactive and trying to find ways to get through. And so maybe you have some friends that aren't so friendly, but yet we call them our friends. Maybe they say mean things to you. Maybe they even do mean things to you. So now we have to take a step back and you encourage yourself and say, are those people that I should have around me? And what is it that I can do differently to make sure that the people that are around me really want the best for me? What about the person who wants to try out for an athletic team? You want to play basketball or soccer, or you want to run track, or maybe you're a dancer, a ballerina, or you do gymnastics, and there's some type of competition that makes you nervous and you're not really sure, and you see the goal, but then the mental health stuff, you just start feeling down about yourself and you don't feel so good about yourself. Well, when you're self-aware and you think about where you are and who's around you, make sure you have right people around you to build you up. And then think about your conscience. As long as you're doing something that's good and something that's right, then you get to keep going. Think about your imagination. What do you need to do to get stronger? What do you need to do to get better? What do you need to do to be recognized and to be noticed? Making sure you're following a conscience of things that are right versus wrong. We don't want to do wrong. We always want to do right. And then have the willpower. Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot accomplish the thing that you set out to do. Because as long as you know that it's the right thing to do, then it is definitely the thing that you should continue to get through and use your willpower to keep going and keep trugging along. What if you're applying psychologist and it's just overwhelming, and saving money is overwhelming, and figuring out scholarships or figuring out how to convince mom to take you to get dinner at the fast food restaurant? As long as you follow these 4 steps and you're proactive, you will definitely get to your end goal. And so the thing that we want to remember is that there are those 4 steps and that nothing can get in your way as long as you're proactive. And what we read in the poem was when by the time she got down to the 4th chapter, she was able to go around, which is exactly what we saw Logan do. She was able to go around her obstacles. She was able to go around the hole and she did not fall in. And then she got brilliant. By the 5th chapter, she went a completely different way. And that's our reminder that sometimes things will not happen in the way we think they should. That we thought we were going down the straight and narrow. We thought we were going to be going down the hallway the way Logan did. And sometimes it's just, we won't be able to go down the middle. Sometimes we will have to take a detour, and that is okay. So for our seniors who were looking forward to certain milestones of being a senior, it stinks that those things didn't happen, but there's something else waiting for you. There's another experience that you get to have. For all of you students who thought that you were going to finish out the school year with your friends and then you didn't have that opportunity and you had to hope that there was a phone available to talk to somebody, to text somebody, to call somebody. And that's definitely not the same as sitting in a lunchroom with somebody. So sometimes we have to be able to adjust. Remember, we started out by talking about the twistable, turnable man. In that same way, nothing is impossible, we also have to be flexible. There's another bull. We have to be flexible. So as long as we know that nothing is impossible and we're flexible, we can accomplish anything just by being proactive. The last thing that I want to show to you is my t-shirt. So yes, I'm wearing pink because we are the Girls Who Brunch Tour. So yes, we're girly and all of that. But it says something and I want to show it to you. So hopefully I can do this right. Let's see. Uh-oh. It says, quitting is an option. It's just not mine. And that is what I want to leave you with today, is that while we are being proactive, while we are doing the things that we need to do to get us on track and to stay on track and to keep us focused, it is important that you recognize that quitting is not your option. And so remember that nothing is impossible and to be flexible. You keep those two things in mind and you'll be good to go. So I'm going to end just quickly with our poem because some of us didn't get a chance to hear the poem. So I'm going to read it one more time, and because I stumbled a little. So there's always a second chance. There's always a do-over. So if we make a mistake, if we have a barrier, if we get a roadblock, we don't give up. We just find another way around. We stand up, we hold our chest out, and we try again. So, Twistable Turnable Man by Shel Silverstein. He's the twistable, turnable, squeezable, pullable, stretchable, foldable man. He can crawl in your pocket or fit in your locket or screw himself up to a 20-volt socket or stretch himself up to the steeple or taller or squeeze himself into a thimble or smaller. Yes, he can. Of course he can. He's the twistable, turnable, squeezable, pullable, stretchable, shrinkable man, and he lives a passable life with his squeezable, lovable, kissable, huggable, pullable, tuggable wife. And they have 2 twistable kids who bend up the way that they did, and they turn and they stretch just as much as they can for this bendable, foldable, do-what-you're-totable, easily moldable, buy-what-you're-sodable, washable, mendable, highly dependable, bounceable, shakeable, buyable, sellable, always unveilable, almost unbreakable, twistable, turnable man. So I will leave you with that poem and the reminder of 2 moral bulls to think or know that nothing is impossible and to always be flexible while handling the first step, the first habit of highly effective teens, which is the same for all people, is to number 1, be proactive. You got this. Love you. Bye.